If you're having trouble keeping the temperature down in your kettle grill, especially during a low and slow, you're probably starting to cook off with too many hot coals. I know there's a lot of videos out there that show you to start to cook off by dumping a full chimney load of hot coals in and then adjusting the temperature by adjusting the vents. But if you think about that a minute, these kettles aren't very big, and it really doesn't take that many hot coals to achieve a temperature of 2¼ 250. The coals that are sitting in there come from a Master Forge chimney, and that holds 70 coals, and that's enough to take this kettle up to 500 plus degrees. If you have a Weber chimney, they hold around 100. That'll kick this temperature up in this kettle to 600 plus degrees. So why do you want to start your cook off with enough hot coals for a 500-600 degree cook when all you need is 2¼ All you do is fight and wait for that temperature to drop if you can get it down at all. So this is how I set up my grill. This is set up for a low and slow, indirect, where I do not have to add coal during the cook. So what I do is I start it off with 5 hot coals. That's all it takes. I have that paper towel sitting in there just to show you where I would place them. So I place the 5 hot coals in there, and that's sitting on top of 70 unlit coals, and that would burn about 4 hours. So if you want to burn longer than that or cook longer than that, you just start to cook off with more unlit coals. If you want a hotter fire, then you just start to cook off with more hot coals. So this is my setup. I'll show you how I do set it up then for a hotter cook and for a longer cook. This would be my setup for an indirect cook, but at a higher temperature. It's the same setup. There's 70 unlit coal, and sitting on top of that paper towel, that's representing where I put 10 hot coals, or maybe 12. That'd be enough to take this kettle to 275, 300, and then you'll be able to maintain it there. So that'd be a nice temperature if you wanted to slow cook some chicken, or maybe smoke some chicken. And that would last, those 70 coals will last about an hour and a half, 2 hours, which is all you'd need. And if you want a longer cook, like I said before, you just start to cook off with more unlit coal underneath. For longer cooks, over 5 hours, this is the setup I use. The other method I use for a rack of ribs, for maybe 4 or 5 hours worth of cooking time. But if I'm going to do a pork shoulder, and you're looking then anywhere at 6 to 12 hours, 16 hours, depending on the size of the shoulder and the temperature of the grill, I use this setup in case I have to add more coal. It's easier to add coal this way than the other way. When you put the coal in the center, it burns down and out. When you start your charcoal over on one side or the other, it'll work its way over to the other side of the grill. And what I do is once it gets over here, well, I still have enough hot coal left if I need to continue to cook, then I put more hot coal up against, and it starts to burn its way back around this way. So the last pork shoulder I did, I think it was a 14.5 hour cook. I used 110, 120 unlit coal, and that burned me for 10.5 hours. So then I just added more coal, worked its way back, and everything worked out nice. So this is my setup for an indirect, low and slow, for a long cook. My vent adjustments for a low temp cook is I always start to cook off with the top vent just barely cracked, no more than 1/4. And that's the same with the bottom vent. I have tick marks down here. Right there it's 1/4. The tick marks are 1/4, half, 3/4. Between 3/4 and 1 on the right is wide open. I always leave that one there throughout the cook. I make all my adjustments with the top vent until the end of the cook. Once the coal starts to die down, if I got to open up the bottom, I do. But it's rare I mess with that. So I do most of my adjustments up here. And if you start your cook off with just your right amount of coal, you'll find that it's so much easier to swing the temperature one way or the other, 25 degrees, by just adjusting this top vent a little bit. And each time you make an adjustment with that top vent, it can take up to 20 minutes for the grill to stabilize its new temperature. Okay, let's put this setup to the test. I'm going to do a test cook. I want 225 degrees to 250. What I want to do is low smoke some bacon for the test. So we got the 5 hot coals sitting on top of, it's 100 unlit coal. The reason I have so many unlit coal there is because after I'm done with the bacon, which is going to take about 2-3 hours, I'm going to want to fire it up pretty good so I can sear some chops and I want to drop the temperature and slow cook them at about 275, 300. So let me get the lid on here. I'll show you my settings, and we'll see how long it takes for the kettle to come to temperature, and we'll monitor the cook. Lid's on. Set the vents. You just want to crack this. That's maybe about 1/8. Bottom, tick marks. Right there's a 1/4. I'm a little less than a 1/4. About 1/8 for the bottom vent. Okay, let's see how long it takes for this thing to come to temp. Temperature's sitting at 2 1/4, and we're just at 14 minutes, 30 seconds. So we got the targeted temp we want, 2 1/4. So let me throw the bacon on, and we'll continue to monitor this cook and see if I can't idle this thing at 2 1/4 or real close. We're a little past 1 1/4 hours, or a little past an hour since we put the bacon on. About 1 hour and 17 minutes. We're sitting at 2 1/4. I made 2 adjustments along the way. The temperature started to climb to 240. It was about 240. So I nudged the top vent. 20 minutes later, it didn't make much difference. So I just nudged the bottom vent a little bit. And the reason I did that is I like to make my adjustments with the top vent. When I'm out of top vent adjustments, then I'll adjust the bottom vent. Sometimes I'll close out all completely if I have to and just work with the top. That's because this kettle here doesn't have a good seal. The lid's, there's a lot of slop in the lid. So if you have a lot of play or slop in your lid, you're getting air in there, so it makes it a little harder to control the temperature. If you have a good seal, and you have a good seal with your fins, your ash sweep, you'll be able to control the temperature much easier. See you next clip. Okay, we're sitting at 2 1/4, or 2 hours and 34 minutes into the cook, so it's a little bit better than 2 1/4 hours since the bacon went on. So we have the targeted temp. I did make one adjustment about 20 minutes ago. Temperature dropped to about 210, 215. So I just nudged the top vent. Sometimes that's all it takes, just a little nudge, and that'll climb its temperature or drop it, whichever you're doing, by 15 degrees or so. Okay, so let me flip this bacon, and then we'll continue to monitor this, see if we can keep it real close to 2 1/4. In case you're wondering, yes, there is bacon on this kettle. Flip the bacon, see you next clip. Okay, let's check the time. We're 3 hours and 38 minutes. We're still at 2 1/4. No adjustments made to the vent since the last check-in. So this goes to show you that you can keep the temperature down in these kettle grills. So if you're having trouble keeping the temperature down in your kettle grill, try this setup and see if it doesn't work for you. If it works for me, there's no reason it should work for you. I pulled the grate off just to show you how much fuel is left in the grill. At 225, 250 degrees, you have enough coal left in there to burn you another 2-3 hours. So if you want to do a low and slow for a rack of ribs or something like that, this is a nice setup to use. It works well for me. Now what I'll do is I'm going to mix those coals up, get them good and hot, then I'll throw those chops on. I don't think I'll be able to show you that if you wanted to see it, but sun setting, so it'll be too dark. So, thought maybe you wanted to see that. And the bacon was done at 2.5 hours or 3.5 hours. Okay, that's the end of the demo cook.